Namaste, fist pump. Welcome to this video. And this video is about how to log your exercise and different exercise modalities within the Lumen app. And I'll be using this picture here to describe it, and I'll just be doing a voiceover. I was going to do it as 3 separate videos, but what I've decided to do is just link them all together. So I'm going to cover cardio, high intensity interval training, and weightlifting, and how to log those and why you log them as you log them, and it's all to do with your aerobic and anaerobic energy system. So without further ado, here's the video. Okay, this video is on straight up cardio and where it fits in your training and how to log it if you're a Lumen user, if it's low intensity, medium intensity, and high intensity. So if we see this chart at the top, and it's not always easy to see where I'm drawing, so I'll try and draw big circles. So if you see this chart at the top, this splits things into low intensity, medium intensity, and high intensity, and they're split up by a thing called your LT1 and your LT2, which is your lactate threshold 1 and your lactate threshold 2. And of course, we're not really checking lactate in our normal gym sessions, so we got to kind of figure this out through means that we do have. So down at the bottom here, I have heart rate, and I've kind of split heart rate into 70%, 80%, 90%, and 100%, just to kind of let you know where they are on this chart. And the other thing we have here, I've marked out, is zone 2. So zone 2 is in your low intensity zone, and it's just before your LT1, before you start producing, I think it's 2 millimolars of lactate. Can't really remember the number. I do have a guide on that, so I'll link that in the description box, and it's free to download, and that will help you work out where your zone 2 is. So low intensity would be something like a walk, even when you're sitting resting, a light cycle. Some people can run in low intensity if they've really been practicing their zone 2. And one way to just check yourself physiologically is if you can fully breathe in through your nose and fully exhale through your nose without opening your mouth. And if you can stay in that kind of zone and exercise in that zone, that would be considered low intensity. And the fuel source we should be using is fat, right about here, depending on where we are. Our energy system is called our aerobic energy system, which just means with oxygen. And our central nervous system shouldn't be too activated. It should be in a kind of rest and digest state. So it's a low activity, not really stimulated too high. Our power output, or our watts, should be down here, nice and low. And our resting, or our heart rate, it's not quite at resting, but it should be kind of here, kind of before 70%. Some people are very different. I can get my zone 2 right up to 78%, but everyone is different in this. So as we move on to medium intensity, so our medium intensity, I know it says moderate hard here, but our medium intensity is this kind of zone here, past our LT1. This is something you would race in, do a 5K and a 10K, even a marathon if you can do that kind of crazy distance. And your heart rate will be kind of 70 to 80. You don't want much more than that. You're going to be really pushing yourself too hard. Our central nervous system is kind of here. Sorry, our watts is kind of here. Our central nervous system is also in this place. Our energy system is still aerobic, but there's elements of anaerobic turnover. This is what the lactate is. Lactate is a kind of carbohydrate fuel that you can recycle and use and turn carbohydrates into a faster burning fuel source. So our fuel source is here. It's mostly carbs with a little bit of fat, probably something along the lines of a 20-80 split of fat and carbohydrates, fat being 20%. And then our high intensity is just going to be straight down here in this zone here. And high intensity is something, if we're truly doing anaerobic work here, high intensity is something we can only have enough fuel for about 1 to 2 minutes of an all-out burst. And this can lead us on to interval training and using this anaerobic system in our interval training. But high intensity might be the sprint at the end of your 5K race. It might be you're doing a full-on test, like a 500-meter rower or even a 2K rower. Would be considered high intensity, even though it would be more here, and our would be more in this LT2 zone. Sorry, it's getting really scribbly now on screen. So anything from about 1 to 2 minutes would be true high intensity, and then we can do hard things like a 2K row, which would be borderline between, hard and super high intensity. So I hope that helps out. I will make another couple of videos on strength training and interval training now. I've got a fresh screen up and I've written some stuff here. 20 on, 10 off, times 8. This is our basic Tabata protocol. So this is all about high intensity. So we're going to forget these lower zones. So this is high intensity interval training. So something like a Tabata protocol, make sure you're properly warmed up. And what are we doing? We're going an all-out effort for 20 seconds on. So in that 20 seconds, we're using our anaerobic energy system. We should be using a ton of carbohydrates. We should be in full fight or flight mode. Our watts should be high. Our heart rate will be nearing maximum for that 20 seconds. And then we'll take a rest. So during the rest time, all these systems should be going back down. So these are my little arrows here saying our energy system going back down. And depending on how fit you are in that 10 seconds, your heart rate should recover a few beats. But obviously 10 seconds isn't very long. And then you fire into it again and then ramp the system going back again. So you're going this way and then this way. And as you do this kind of protocol, you will see that you begin to fatigue, and by the 8th round, probably a pathetic effort depending on your fitness. So let's go through this one-to-one here. So what is a one-to-one? A one-to-one is a one-to-one rest to training interval. Really popular ones are 30 seconds and 1 minute. So you do 1 minute on as hard as you can, 1 minute off as hard as you can. A well-known fitness test is this 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 3 rounds. And the goal, not for 3 rounds, for 6 rounds, sorry. Let's put times 6 here. For 6 rounds. And the goal is to match your watts each and every time. So let's say you cover a certain distance or certain watts. Let's say you're doing a rower, for instance. So you're doing the rower and in 30 seconds you get 150 meters. Each round you should be able to get 150 meters or within 10 meters of that, or within sort of 5 to 10% of that each time. What will normally happen, the fitter you are, the more likely you are to do that, and the better. But even though there is periods of rest and recovery, this would be considered a high intensity movement, and the clues in the name, high intensity interval training. So next video we'll cover weightlifting, which is again very different. Okay guys, one of the most confusing things to log is weight training, and is it low, medium, or high intensity? And I'm gonna let you know today that it's high intensity. The actual movements are high intensity if you're doing it properly. So here we got 5 reps, 10 reps, 15 reps, 20 reps. And none of these rep schemes really matter. What matters is this RIR, reps in reserve. And I've got 1 to 3. So if you do 5 repetitions of a movement, let's just pick bench press for instance. So if we do a bench press and we do 5 reps and we only have 1 to 3 reps, I would like it closer to this lower end. You have gone high intensity. You're using your anaerobic energy system. You're using a high amount of watts. Your heart rate may not go anywhere near up. So heart rate is kind of not really taken into consideration, but you're using a high amount of watts. Your central nervous system should be jacked up a little bit because you should be near maximal. So you should be really intense when you're lifting. So you do 5 heavy reps and you could only do 6. That would be 1 rep in reserve. That would be an anaerobic energy system. The muscles involved, the chest, the triceps, the front delt, are using carbohydrates in that movement. Your legs are using fat, your butt cheeks are using fat, depending on how much you're straining and pushing your legs into the ground on the bench press. But the actual muscles that you're working are using carbs. The actual muscles that you're using are anaerobic, and the actual sort of central nervous system response will be a fight or flight. You should be amped up for that. And it doesn't matter if you're doing 5 reps, 10 reps, 15 reps, 20 reps. It's about how many reps in reserve. If you don't have many reps in reserve, if I, for instance, do 10 repetitions and I have then 10 reps in reserve, that's not doing me any good other than a warm up, moving up in weight. So let's say I bench press 100 kilos and let's say I do the bar for 10 reps. Well, I can do 100 reps with the bar. So I'm over here and over here because that's more kind of cardio. When I put 50 kilos on the bar and I do 10 reps and I could do 20 reps with that, yeah, I'm still down here in these zones. But as I get closer and closer to my 1 rep max or my 5 rep max or my 6 rep max, the more I'm going to be using carbohydrates, anaerobic, high watts, and therefore weight training is high intensity. But obviously we're doing 10 repetitions and we're taking a 2-minute rest. So 10 repetitions could take 10 to 20 seconds of actual work with a 2-minute rest. So you might be in the gym for 45 minutes, but you've only really been moving weight for 15 to 20 minutes maximum. So the way I would log it in your Lumen is to, if it's a 45-minute weightlifting session, I would just cut the time in half, say 20 minutes, and put 20 minutes of high intensity rather than putting 45 minutes of high intensity. So that's how I would log most weight training sessions. If you're doing a 45-minute session, just cut it in half, 25 minutes of high intensity. If you're doing a 20-minute weightlifting session, you've probably only been lifting for half of that time, so you'd log 10 minutes. I hope that makes sense. Any questions, pop them in the comment box and check out the other videos in this series. Just a quick outro to this video. In the description box below, I have all links to Fat Loss Blueprint, if you would like coaching, the low intensity guide I mentioned in the video, which I think is paramount for everyone to get involved with, and other bits and pieces, discount codes, etc. if you don't have a Lumen. Thanks for watching.